All right, good morning everybody. Another continuation of STAC. I do feel like maybe this presentation should have been in the afternoon, and every time the word STAC comes up, we do a shot or something. That could be a good way to get us drunk quickly and get to know each other. So we're going to be talking about how UP42 is using STAC and some of the challenges we faced. But first of all, who are we? So this is my first FOSS4G, and probably I'm one of the least technical people in the room, so please go easy on me. My focus is actually as a product manager on the user experience. So actually what's really critical for us is because we're all familiar with data and we're all familiar with the challenges that data presents, and some of the challenges for us when you actually receive the assets into your storage. We want to make life of the user as easy as possible, to standardize and to really facilitate a good user experience. And for us, STAC has been very important. And Batuhan, he's the real expert who's been facing the challenges and implementing it for our users. So he'll be doing most of the talking today. So first of all, a short introduction to who we are, and then we'll look at the challenges, and then the solutions, and then finally some of the lessons learned. And of course, we continue to evolve as does STAC. So we're very keen to keep the momentum going and see what comes next. And if you had been to the previous presentations we gave last year, I think already you'll see we've made big steps forward in our implementation. So first of all, if you're not familiar with UP42, we are a commercial company, but we also do have non-commercial data available, such as Sentinel-2. So for us, what's really important is bringing together all the different satellite providers, also aerial data providers, and then additionally providing analytics or the ability for you to actually add your own analytical solutions into our platform for you to get the most out of the data. And there's no lock-in. Once you've downloaded the data, you can take it, use it freely. Of course, many people go into QGIS immediately, but you can also use our platform really as the first starting point to amalgamate and find all of this data, and hopefully then derive insights. So for us, it's mainly searching our catalog, and then also tasking, so you can also request future data. Of course, that's for premium commercial sources. You can place your orders on the platform, and then what's going to be critical in this talk is once you've actually ordered your data and it's being delivered to storage, the download, the management, the access, and the further use, which is, of course, really why you come to get the data, right? And as mentioned, you can upload your own custom algorithms. There's many different, many ways you can take with the data. And to briefly mention, we have a console interface, but also STK API, and we're also available on ArcGIS as a plugin. So yeah, that's mainly how we're available. And so finally, to talk specifically about the storage, and really what's critical for us was once you realize how many different data providers there are, and we're constantly adding more and more data providers to our catalog, I was really shocked about how different providers give the data when you press request. And maybe I was very naive, assuming it would be a nice GeoTIFF or something like this, and everything would be really easy. And I think that's really critical, because not everybody will be as familiar with the technical side of the data. And I think what's critical is all data should be accessible and usable for the wider community. Particularly as we saw earlier in the keynote, it's used for many very good things in life. So I think for us, making data easy and accessible is really critical. And really, when you're dealing with data at scale and multiple providers, you can't be expected to understand all the different providers' way of working. So that's where STAC for us really adds a benefit to indexing and navigating the data, to really create that single point of interaction, and to make it convenient for you as a user. And then also the interoperability is also critical, because data isn't used in isolation. So this is really where STAC starts to come into the picture for us. And the journey began a couple of years ago, and now it's really our way forward right now. So with that, I will hand over to Batu, who is going to give some of the more technical information and really walk through.
Switch the mic.
So, small technical interlude.
Yeah. Works?
There you go.
Nice. Okay, I hope they get it. All right. So I wanted to start with a simple question. Like usually when you search for data, satellite data, in their catalog, in the provider's catalog, you filter according to some date or like cloud cover. But once you download the data and you have for example, two different data from two different providers, how would you understand whether this data is like after some date or whether this data is like with, in terms of cloud coverage, is less than a number? For that, providers give you metadata like this. And this is like two examples of metadata. One is for PHR, Playad, and one is for SuperView. And your job is actually need to find those keys, like with this horrible XML, in my opinion, but it used to be it's mostly the XML files they deliver. And like you need to find, okay, where is this information about date? It's like, if you carefully look at, you'll see that in the imaging date, in the left side is like saying in the date of the acquisition date, and the other side is like in the start time. And our problem is basically was in the storage, people download data and they download many data to their storage, and from multiple different providers. At some point you wanted to understand, you want to understand which of this data is after some date, or which of this data is like have less cloud coverage. In that sense, I need to write a program for you to do this filtering operations. But for each provider, should I go and should I try to detect in which key I need to search this imaging data or cloud coverage? It's a bit not very easy job to program such kind of many control flows. That was our problem, basically. And also, additionally, sometimes you want to provide an AOI, and you want to say that you want to get this, all the images from Berlin, for example. We need to program something like this efficient for users to do it. For example, as an example, if you don't have a standardized metadata systems like STAC, what you have is for each provider, they give you area intervals in geometry, location, bound AOI. Sometimes they use camel case, sometimes they use different keys to define the same information. For date, item ID, and many more other metadata information, they all follow different standards. But in STAC, for example, you just say that, give me the geometry, and it's it gives you the geometry, because we know that geometry is under this geometry key, which is much more simpler, which is you just check the date time and you see the date time. If every provider would return such metadata, it would be really easy for me that I don't lose any more hair. I'm just 27 years old and already getting out of my hair. And the implementation question was that when we first started, is more that Matthias thought about catalog collection item. But in our case is a bit different. We are not a provider, so we don't have many files from single point, but we have multiple providers having different kind of file system and file structure. We need to make a bit of standard version of this structure as well. And the other part is the second big question is that this complexity doesn't go anywhere. We need to transfer this information from their metadata system to STAC metadata system. And this third problem was the biggest problem I remember is that STAC doesn't care about UP42, but we also, we need some information that we can put some asset IDs, some account IDs, and workspace IDs for you to navigate around. And the solution was this in overall. We worked around 7 or 8 months, a lot of iterations, but it is the general structure right now. We have a platform and you have assets. And for these assets, in the left side, we also keep some metadata for our systems. And we say that each UP42 asset is equal to one STAC collection. And under this, you have some multiple items and assets. And the way that we extend actually UP42 information is using, again, STAC extensions. Having this asset ID, having these extensions and putting some information. And all of our storage is one catalog. I'm gonna make it more visual for you. So let's order you order one item, you order one UP42 asset. We also had a zipped. That's why I'm saying for legacy purposes, we were storing assets as zip. But right now, I'm gonna get to there. Let's say you have one UP42 asset. For that, we provide you one collection, as you see here. And like there are now 3 items defining for each geometry, so that you have 3 items under this collection. If you check the metadata, for example, I think it's a bit, colors are not seen very much, but this is basically, this is for one collection. In the left-hand side, you see here is like it's the collection. And the other side, you see one example of one item is the type feature. And as you can see, we can add like UP42 related information like here, and we can add more like stack extensions to validate those information. And you can add more like standard information about date time, title, description. And for item, for example, in the first question, what we added like start date time, end date time is like similar for all providers in the system. So it makes it much easier for me to filter, to search through this metadata information. There are like many more metadata you can add, for sure. It's just for short for the presentation purposes. Since we have this kind of system, I can use CQL filters in the left-hand side. What you should focus is more like in this filter is a bit big and also complex for me. Is like, for example, what I say is that give me 10 item after 2022 and give me the items that cloud cover is less than 20%. And the our API, our STAC API, deliver you that information in the right-hand side, like 10 items for you. And it's like, if you go into the metadata of these items, you see that it's like they are actually comply with these filter operations. And the asset model, like, as a next step, actually we had this problem. STAC assets is more like downloadable links in STAC API. So what we store is only one zip. You can only download one zip. There is actually a bit way of downloading things inside zip, but it's a bit complex operation for API. So we only had one asset. You just download all the zips. So we couldn't make use of these STAC assets before. What we're gonna do in the next, for example, we're gonna extract all the information so that you also access to individual files in the system. And since we have this operation, you can easily, for example, read this part of image only from red band. You can easily build, on downstream application to work these metadata and make it easier. These are more like, building blocks to make it in all other operations easier to program. What are the challenges actually in the tool side? To mapping the information to STAC, like meaning that taking all this information from providers metadata and putting into STAC standards was not easy. It's not easy. We are still struggling with that because the providers are not really delivering you schema of their metadata system. They are not. They may not be consistent, and sometimes they even don't deliver metadata. It's the worst case. You don't have any information. You know, like what should I map? And they use like different semantic, different heuristics. Is a bit. It's hard to program this mapping operation. We use a library for that, which is private right now. I can give more details later. I didn't want to add the details. And for API purposes, the problem were like delivery structure are like very different in premium world. And it's not like Sentinel or Landsat. It's more, there are like more complexities. There are tasking cases which has like different structures. We had problems with zipped assets. Now we solve this, just ignore zipped and extract all information, then do it. But still, it's a bit missing part to handle is like easily. And there were like some tiled asset, tri-stereo asset pairs, which you don't find in open source data mostly. It's more like a premium tasking operations. And since we have like one UP42 asset is one STAC collection, it actually makes sense also search through collections. But right now there is only one API for item search. I guess collection search is also I saw RFC for that, maybe whether we implement or not. And authentication is not related to like free software world, but we also had to implement something to authenticate so that you only reach out to your assets, specifically not others' assets. As a, like a, how do you say, as 6 points to learn in generically in the bright side and a bit the dark side. The good thing is that STAC actually makes you really easy to communicate over these information like satellite data. Because in our company, for example, it's not only geospatial people are working, there are product people, there are like computer scientists. And when you explain a topic to them, and when you have to explain 10 different topics from 10 different providers, it's really getting hard. So communication improved much better among the teams. And it's pretty flexible, makes you flexible to structurize things for your use case. In our case, it's like collection item asset, this structure, but in your case, you can also structure it for your case. And there are like very great tools, like there are already backend frameworks for you to implement easily, and all other Python packages are really great. And a bit the negative side is the onboarding people is not very easy, especially in the other side of the world, not just special people. It's a bit hard. You need to be a bit nerd to understand all these things. It's like, it's okay for us, but like people are not really, people struggle a bit. For premium data, maybe there are like more missing parts that current information is not a bit, how to say, current information may not be adequate for the premium data descriptions. And for the backend performance, we started with PG Stack and then had to switch SQL Alchemy. There were some, the problem we are here is that we have a system that we store data in collection and item, but the providers, for example, store data as like one collection and many items. So in this case, it was a bit hard to go through that. Yeah. These are a bit the general lessons. I guess we can talk after this meeting more. It used to be your slide, but I'm gonna cover if you like. Yeah. So the way forward is like what we want to do is, as I said, we are now building the building blocks for all these, like easy access, easy processing, fast processing things, and like following more standards. It makes it pretty easy for our like applications for us to go into that direction. What is the next is basically just following more these standards and applying more. And in that sense, it's going to be much easier to when we go to the algorithm sides and processing sides. That's basically it. Thanks.
Thank you, Batuhan and Sam. Microphone's not working again. Do we have any questions? Back here.
Yeah. It's okay, but you said you are using a library to derive metadata from most metadata. Can you name it or can you tell a bit more about that?
We had to invent it in the company. Is like I can explain the details, but making the library open source, etc., is a bit things that we are talking about right now. Currently, it's not available open source, but I can explain a bit the idea. The problem in our case is that the problem to maintain all these different providers. So it's mostly for our use case. Actually, I'm not sure like many people would be interested. It's also a good chance to have a bit whether you were interested or not in general people. And we don't want to put an open source project without following and without being sure a bit it's going to be followed, it's going to work for people, etc. But I can give the details for sure.
I think you might notice also can we go back to one of the earlier slides with Jason? We also had to add a lot, and we also had to add a lot of our own information. I know which slide. Yeah, like here you can see we had to add all our own UP42 specifics there because, of course, how we handle things also from like workspaces and account management and we're trying also now to make the open source data more readily available in our platform. So the Sentinel-2 data is obviously free. So you don't have to be paying for your credits to access this data. So this is one of the challenges also, is blending the worlds of the open source and the premium together to try and give a product that fits all, because there is not one size that fits all, is the kind of the TLDR.
Okay, we have a question here. Thanks for the talk, guys. Great. I'm just wondering, have you provided some feedback to some of your providers, particularly ones that are not sort of not sort of ESA and ASA and stuff like that, but ones that particularly they go through you as a intermediary to the client? Have you given a bit of feedback what they could produce?
Yeah, exactly. Like the product managers are mostly in contact with the providers for different teams, data tasking, and for our analytics and storage. Is also not very easy for them to acknowledge directly. There is a bit learning curve. And also there is already established system for their metadata system. There are many applications they have to work. So that's a bit, this is why they can easily adapt. There are already some providers like Capella is already returning us stack. It's like makes my life easier, just, like, just like copy paste, But for others, it takes a bit time. Yeah.
Okay, we had a question back here. Same question. Okay. Any other questions? I have one. So you have some metadata that you defined for UP42. Have you specified that in a extension and published that so that you can validate it?
We have extensions, but I guess we use it in internal repositories right now. But yeah, definitely we can publish. It's mostly UP42 related. Yeah. Okay. It's available. Sorry. Yeah. It's open. Yeah. It's open. Yeah.
Okay. I see the scheme is down.
Yeah.
The stacks and there were relevant paths. So
I had to. Sorry. Yeah. I had to a bit. The presentation, the information are not 100% correct. I have to make it a bit readable from the audience. That's why it's not fully kind of.
Okay, all right. And with that, we're out of time. So thanks.